there's a lot of frenzy of what is happening right there in Government House. So the story is developing, it's breaking, newsmen trying to get what they can from all over the place, and then do you see just trying to glean some information. I say, well, but our correspondent Idris Jibrin is there at the moment, so just trying to glean whatever information they can get about this kidnap.
As you can see, man, a lot of press men are there just trying to understand what exactly played out. If you reference this with what we saw in Kagara and Kankara, I mean, this took shorter time to get the students released. So maybe this is a silver lining, and you'd expect that they want to know what formula was used. You might have heard the governor saying, well, there was the use of kinetic and non-kinetic approach. But if there's anything I've learned in this, I mean, with the different kidnappings, non-kinetic means a lot of things. Well, kinetic, kinetic means, of course, having security agencies, trail them and perhaps just pin them at a corner, which is quite tricky as well because they might not be able to engage them because they're children. They might use them as human shield. But the non-kinetic is always tricky. So does that mean there was some form of promises made that if you release these students, this is what will happen? Don't forget that this abduction just happened hours after the governor granted amnesty in court to some kidnappers. I think about 7 of them were granted amnesty and 8 kidnapped victims were released. So this kidnapping happened just hours right after the governor did that. So what does non-kinetic mean in this sense? Big questions. And I think that the answers need to be given such that other terrorists who might want to carry out these sort of attacks or kidnappings know that, well, this is what is in store for you if you try this. Because if they get a sense that this is lucrative, then, I mean, this might just continue.
Look, we had that interview with the governor moments ago. So I'm hoping that we should be able to bring it to the viewers now. Okay, that is not happening. But we'll equally try and get our correspondents back such that he could just give us some details as to what transpired. So we'll be back with you all in just a moment. Stay with us. All right, welcome back. Well, yes, indeed, it's a live scene, so these things are developing, and it could be a little challenge, problematic and frenzied. So our correspondent Idris Dribbin joins us now, as you might have seen him previously, just trying to get set for us and bring you that detail as it is happening. Good morning, Idris. There's a lot going on. Help us piece and make sense of some of these things if you can. So could you just give us a background? You've been there now for some hours. So tell us, what is going on at the moment?
Well, Chamberlain, like you said, a lot is going on in Zamfara State, and so far so good. It's a happy moment for both the government and the people, and of course the parents of these children of Government Girls Secondary School in Jengebe of Talata Mafara, who were earlier released this morning from their abductors, and they were received by the state governor, Governor Bello Matawale, who actually spoke extensively about the situation leading to their release and the negotiation that was reached between the state government and the bandits. In fact, the governor was saying the success story behind this initiative is as a result of the intervention of the repentant bandits that they have in the state, who actually engaged the bandits into discussion, leading to the release of these 279 schoolgirls. So, like as I'm talking to you now, all of them have been released, and like you can see, they are just coming out from this hall where the governor just finished addressing them, and they are taking them to the hospital where they will be medically checked up, and they will, once they are satisfied medically fit, then they will start reuniting them with their families. But at the moment, all the girls are here, and they are taking them to the hospital one by one. So the governor confirmed that they are okay, and they are happy that the children have finally returned home.
Well, Idris, I know when you say the governor talked about them being part of the work of the repentant bandits, you know, there are several questions. So did he speak, or did you hear any officials there talk about what does that then mean? If he says it's work of part of the repentant bandits, so what about those who actually carried out this abduction? What's the thinking about what is going to happen to them, or what they plan to do with them?
Well, like what the governor says, he said actually Nigerians will be shocked if they know who are those behind the abduction of these schoolgirls. And then he went further to say that the state government is not actually stopping there. Apart from using the repentant bandits, there is also the combined effort of security forces. You have seen the search and rescue surveillance that was carried out across Zamfara State. And he also did say that the state government will continue to push for negotiation with those bandits who have not repented, and then they will make sure that this incident does not repeat itself, not only in Zamfara State but across northern Nigeria. But he did also say that the effort leading to the release of anyway, the issue of ransom, he said no ransom was paid to secure the release of these girls. It's just the discussion between the government, the repentant bandits, and security operatives that led to the release of these girls. So a lot of things had happened that led to their release, Chamberlain.
Well, you know, about the ransom, it's a different question entirely. Big issue, questions about if that really is the case. But when he says that Nigerians will be shocked about those who are behind it, did he mention those who were behind it? Because I know you had that conversation with him as well.
Yes, he did not mention those who are behind it. Of course, he did mention the issue of the bandits that are operating in Zamfara State. Apart from that, he did not specifically say that these are other people behind the bandits, because probably, since the governor said Nigerians will be shocked if they hear those behind the abduction, which means there should be a third party among in the situation. But he did not specifically say these are the people. But he did also say that he will find a time to grant a comprehensive interview to discuss about the situation, which means the governor is ready to reveal some secrets about the scenario leading to the abduction of these girls. But Chamberlain, in the meantime, if you can allow me, I have the Commissioner for Home Affairs and Security that will be shedding more light to us, especially relating to this development of those abduction, Abakar Dauran. I will talk to him briefly, then I will come back to you again, then we'll continue discussion. Honorable Commissioner, thank you for talking to us. His Excellency just received these schoolgirls, and he did mention a lot of things, including the fact that Nigerians will be shocked if they know those behind the abduction of these girls. What can you tell us about this scenario?
Well, anyway, I cannot go into that, but I know there's a lot of people that are behind all these kind of atrocities. So I think it's something that we have to go through. The Nigerian government is supposed to do something about all those that are committing these atrocities. We cannot allow this thing to be always happening. Look at what happened in Kankara. Look at what happened in Niger State. And now Zamfara State. Imagine, look at these small children, just not up to 10 years. 11 to 12 years, imagine. So it's something that government has to do something about this.
Commissioner, what I'm trying to understand, apart from the bandits who are operating, are you saying that there are other people involved in this situation?
Of course, yes, there is. There is, because the way we look into this problem, there is somebody behind it. Because it's just like a planned attack. The way they did it and the way they took them up to that area, or the axis they took them to, at least they walk almost about 20 kilometers, and nobody tried to rescue these children. So there is something behind it.
Who are those behind it?
Anyway, when investigation will show who are them, because we are trying our best to find out what is exactly happening.
Has there been any arrest so far on this?
There's no any arrest that made, but we are trying our best to see that we get the culprit.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, Chamberlain, that is the Commissioner for Home Affairs and Security here in Zamfara State, and also saying the same thing about the people involved in this abduction. And you heard what he says about some people involved in this. We don't know who are those people, but like they are saying, in the meantime, they are going to reveal one after the other those involved in this abduction. Chamberlain.
Well, the country will be waiting for that to happen as soon as possible. But, you know, when that news broke, you know, when you sent in that material, the impression everyone had was 317. And that was what the Commissioner of Police referenced on the day it occurred, when we even broke it here. So how did they come about that 279 from 317?
Yes, everybody is under the impression that these girls are 317, like what the Commissioner of Police earlier said. But now the governor has said that the girls are 279, and that could be probably because we had the news of some who escaped and some who earlier returned, but that has not been officially confirmed by the governor. But what he did say is that the number of these girls that were abducted are 279, and all of the 279 are accounted for. So we can't precisely say this is where the police commissioner got his figure, which they made mention earlier that there are 317. But you heard the governor when he said there are 279, and all these 279 are here in Government House, and they are going to the hospital as we speak.
Idris, Coyote here. I mean, thank you for the work you're doing. I mean, it's heart warming to see those girls. But if you could just give us a timeline. So we understand that they were abducted on Friday at about 1 a.m. But help us understand the timeline of the release. Because, I mean, you recall over the weekend, there were stories about them being released and the government came back to refute that story. So when exactly were they released? When were they picked up? When were they brought to the government house? Such that we can just piece, these pieces of information together.
Exactly, Kayode. The communication here was actually very limited. As of yesterday night, as of last night, around 9 a.m., we learned that there are some buses leaving Zamfara State Government House, but we don't know where they are going. So we made some calls to find out whether these girls have been released. That no one confirmed anything to us. They didn't tell us anything. So this morning at about 4 a.m., we all received calls that we should rush to Government House. In fact, nobody knows the time they arrived inside Government House. But by the time we got into Government House, these girls are already seated. That was around 5 a.m. That was when they got them inside this conference hall and they sat down. And then the governor started addressing them. But in the governor's address, he made mention that he got a call around 11 p.m. last night about the news on the release of the girls. And that was when he started mobilizing people on how they can bring them back. So that was the timeline, the time of the arrest, and then, of course, the time of the release. But we don't know precisely the time these girls arrived at Zamfara State Government House. But it was around this time that I told you, 4 and 5. That is when we were able to see them, and we received official confirmation from the state government.
Well, Idris, again, thanks for all you do. But just one thing that I'm curious to know. The governor has been able to identify the fact that, yes, there are some people who are, playing up these activities, banditry, kidnapping, and the rest of them. I'm just wondering, since there is an identification of people who are involved in these acts, do you see any possibility that, there will be some arrests? Because clearly a crime has been committed.
Of course, crime has been committed, and like I said, I have asked the Commissioner of Security and Home Affairs if there has been any arrest. He said no arrest was made because it was clearly a negotiation between the repented bandits and the bandits that are currently active. So no arrest is made. But the governor also did say that he is not relenting on his effort. He is going to move forward, and definitely those who are behind this will definitely be held accountable for what they have done. But beyond that, the governor also did say that his approach of negotiation with dialogue with the bandits is not going to stop. He will continue to dialogue, to discuss with them, to see the way how they can be able to drop their arms. And for those who could not drop their arms, then there may be some kind of offensive against them. And definitely, in due course, probably some arrests will be made and some head will roll definitely here in Zamfara State.
If we go by the definition of the word bandits, you would imagine that definitely something serious ought to happen. So some might be misconstruing this as government trying in one way or another to certify all these things. I guess what one can only say here is wait for what is going to happen, in due course. But going by the definition of bandits, what do you see happening?
Well, going by the definition of bandit, what I see happening is these people have not stopped what they are doing anyway, because in the last 4 days that I've been in Zamfara State, I've also have had a lot of cases of this banditry going on in so many places across the states. Kidnapping there and then. In fact, there was one of the girls, among these girls, there was one of the girls that spoke, in Hausa. She said one of the students that was abducted, she met her father there in the bush. Her father was also kidnapped. She met him in the bush, and the father told the girl that she should pretend, she should never show that she knows him, because if she shows that she knows him, they may definitely kill him and kill her as well, or they may not even release her. So the girl had to pretend she doesn't know that man as her father, and in fact he was her father, which means this banditry activity is still ongoing. It has not stopped, and the people are still carrying out their activities. Even after kidnapping these girls, they continue kidnapping people individually from one place to another. We've been hearing these cases in the last 4 days that we've been in Zamfara state. So going by the definition of this bandit, I see a lot of things happening, and they have not stopped happening. Like what the governor says, until they receive a lot of security reinforcement, a lot of commitment on the part of both federal government and security operatives, this thing may likely to continue escalating across the states.
I'd like to come in, Idris. It's good to see you in Zamfara there. Just wondering if you know what role the federal government played in this, because we have been seeing some activity around the villa. We heard the statement from the presidency vowing that this will be the last of this type of abductions. But from your testimony now, it looks like what is happening is that the kidnapping of students is the one that is grabbing the headlines, and naturally it should, because when you hear, almost 300 people are being kidnapped all at once from one secondary school, it certainly should grab the headlines. But wondering here if you have any information on the role, if any at all, played by the federal government.
I can't hear again.
Oh dear, looks like we're losing Idris now, but it will be very good to know if we have him back online. It will be very interesting to know if we have any information on what role the federal government played in this, because was it yesterday or 2 days ago, we saw the Minister for Aviation, Hadi Sirika, in a closed-door meeting with the president, and shortly after, he did say that they were doing some work to ensure that the students were returned. So it will be very, very helpful to know if the federal government played a role in this, especially when you also put into context the fact that
what is going on, and like what you're seeing, they are still moving them from here
the federal government.
to,
do you have any information?
To the hospital where they will be treated. I'm still going to be talking with the Commissioner for Religious, who is also from Jengebe, Honorable Commissioner. Thank you very much, sir. You can stay here. Thank you very much for joining us, Honorable Commissioner.
Yeah.
You are the Commissioner of Religious Affairs here in Zamfara State.
Definitely.
How can you describe this incident?
First of all, we thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Creator, who show us His power for rescuing our children of government girls assigned secondary school Jangebe.
Well, we need to go to break, but just hang on. We'll bring you more on those developing story in just a moment. Stay with us. Welcome back. Well, yes, indeed, it's a developing story. We're covering for you this continuous coverage about the release of the governor of Zamfara State, Bello Matawale, did say there are 279 girls of government girls secondary school, Jangebe, who have been released, and they were in government house. If you caught our opening, you might have seen images of the girls, how they were in government house, received by the governor. The governor himself been up for a while, attending to all of those matters. He did say, guys, that he was really tired. He needed to get some rest when we tried to ambush him. But you know how it is with media. They always want to get as much information to the people because they hold the media and public trust for the people such that we could get as much information as possible. But we also do have our man, Idris Jibrin, who is right there in the thick of things, just gleaning as much information as possible. He's been speaking to several people actually, so it's happening real quick and fast, and that's how we have live cameras just bringing all of those information to you. You could see them live as they happen. Well, let's attempt to cross again to Gusau with our correspondent, Idris Jibrin.
Okay.
He had quite a number of people lined up. Idris, go ahead, please.
Yes, Chamberlain, like we've been doing it, we are still here in Zamfara State Government House, and like you can see, the girls are still coming out and going to the hospital. I've been speaking with a number of people. The last person I spoke with, the Executive Secretary, Female Education, and now I have the Honorable Commissioner, the Zamfara State Ministry of Education, who will also be talking to us. Honorable Commissioner, thank you very much for joining us. We knew that all our schools were shut down in Zamfara State following this incident, and now that the girls are released, what will be the next line of action?
Alhamdulillah, let me correct that impression that schools are closed down in Zamfara State. Boarding schools are closed down in Zamfara State, quite okay, but we are taking a temporary measure to make them as day schools as well. And we are sending the proposal to His Excellency for his kind approval, so that those students who are in the locations where these schools are situated could be going to school for a temporary basis as day student. And those who are not from that area will be relocated to the area of residency where they can get accepted by any school nearby, so that the curriculum and the other activities must not be suffering because of this sad event that took place last week.
Let me understand you very well. Are you referring to all the boarding schools in Zamfara State, or you are referring to schools that are in a more hostile environment?
The school we are anticipating are in hostile locations have already been closed long ago. This I'm talking about the other 7 boarding schools that have not been closed, which this GSS Jangebe is one of them. So we are proposing to His Excellency to, instead of closing them completely, to convert them to day schools, especially for those students who are residents of the area where those schools are located, and for those who come from another area could be accepted by the schools that are day based from where they come from. So it is a complex but a very simple model, and we are trying to explain to His Excellency this morning so that he can give us the approval. Then the staff of the ministry will know how to reallocate them.
Is it going to be a temporary situation or permanent?
It's going to be a temporary, not permanent, because the situation is very drastic. So we have to take a drastic action that is at least temporarily, so that we provide solutions that are not permanent based until the whole security apparatus has been assessed holistically by His Excellency and the other stakeholders.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Chamberlain, you got your answer. The issue of the ongoing banditry activities. You had the Commissioner of Education saying that their plan now is to temporarily convert those boarding schools into day schools. Where there are day schools close by, then those children will be going to those schools and going back to their homes instead of sleeping in schools, which means there is still fear of maybe something like this may likely happen. He just did say that the situation is very drastic and the government has to take a drastic action in order to address it, which means boarding schools are likely continue to remain closed, and the students will likely to be going to day schools across Zamfara State. Chamberlain.
Yeah, so Idris, did the governor or any government official, or do you have any information as to whether or not the federal government played a role in the release of these girls?
Well, so far, apart from what the governor did say, the effort of security operatives, which of course are under the federal government, and earlier we've seen the federal government delegation, about 3 ministers that came to Zamfara State and assured the Zamfara State government that these girls will surely be released. And we have also seen the intervention of the Nigeria police when they brought some surveillance helicopters that were used in carrying out surveillance across the bushes in Zamfara State. So a lot of hands were put on deck in order to ensure the release of these girls. There were intervention by the federal government, intervention by the state government, and of course the intervention by the repented bandit as disclosed by the state governor Chamberlain.
Okay, well, Idris, you know, when you equally tried to get across to the commissioner of police, but there was a time they were talking about having helicopters around, they had the location of the girls. What did he tell you further? Was there any update as to how they located the girls and rescued them?
Well, like what we discussed with the commissioner of police, he told us that they have the location of the girls. They know where these bandits have kept the girls, and they have stopped moving the girls. Initially, they are moving them in the bush from one location to another, and later they stopped moving them and they kept them in one location. And that's those helicopters that were sent from Abuja to Zamfara State. They were the ones that were used for carrying out surveillance across Zamfara State. Even yesterday, we witnessed one when the helicopters took off from the police command, where they started going out for surveillance activities. So it wasn't a rescue mission anyway. These girls were released. They were not rescued because nobody, even the governor, did not say these girls were rescued. It wasn't a rescued mission. It was as a result of negotiation between government security operatives and the active bandit and the repented bandits.
Idris, we do thank you for your reporting. We know you've been up almost all night, but just hang in there, try and get some rest. We'll keep tabs on this developing story and bring it to you, viewers, as we get them.